what's up, Sassy Stuff? I'm Molly and I'm here with Georgia, and today we're starting a very new fun series I'm excited to lead, the Sassy Stuff Gymnastics show. We're going to go over weekly all things gymnastics that you guys are excited to catch up on. This week in particular, we wanted to touch base on the fact that Georgia knows nothing about gymnastics, and we're just going to roll it off. It's going to be fun, and we have like a little bit of an amateur here that is watching gymnastics, having fun with it. I competed myself for a long time, so I'm excited to see her perspective and mine. We're excited to show you guys those perspectives.
It should definitely be interesting, as in I've never even done a flip in my life. I realized that while I was watching that, yeah, I've done like the roll over when you that, whatever that's called. I don't even know what they're called. But to put my hands on the ground and flip my body over has never happened.
We'll work on that next time I see you. Yeah, I coached for years. I love gymnastics, all things gymnastics. It was my entire childhood. So I was literally homeschooled to be a gymnast. So it's very exciting for me, and I've always loved collegiate gymnastics. As much, I have to preface this, as much of a Texas fan as I am, growing up, my dream was to be a Georgia gym dog. That did not happen, and that's okay, because now I get to talk about them, which is just, it's the same. It's the same.
I mean, I've always loved watching gymnastics. Like that was always my favorite part of like the Olympics, but that was the only time I really ever watched gymnastics.
It's an interesting sport. I think it's honestly the most elite sport. I don't think not just anybody can be a gymnast. I think it takes a lot of work, and it takes years and years of work. And that's actually why we're going to run into our first athlete highlight of the week. Helen Hugh. She is from Missouri. She scored her first perfect 10 of the season this season. Actually, the first perfect 10 in general this season. And what is so amazing about Helen is that she's just coming back from her redshirt year. And for those of you who don't know, taking a year off, I think as an athlete in general, it's very hard to come back. But specifically as a gymnast, I mean, you're training 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. It's not really a sport you can just take a year off of. That's why a lot of gymnasts like Simone Biles or Allie Raisman, when they took their 6 months, 12 months after the Olympics, they talk about those first 6 months coming back from a year off are the hardest months ever, because you're getting back to the shape that you were at one point, which is really difficult to get back. So I just want to shout her out because she is such an amazing gymnast. I watched her beam routine that was a perfect 10. Flawless, effortless. I mean, she got on the beam. She competed one of the most difficult dismounts at the end, but through and through, I mean, she got up there, she moonwalked, she danced, she pranced, she had fun. And that's what's really exciting about college gymnastics, is that she's just having fun and doing the thing that she loves and going to school. And I think she's an amazing athlete, and I think that beam routine was awesome. But I'm interested, what are your thoughts about the beam routine since you watched it?
I liked it. She did this like cool little body roll. I thought that was really cute. And then she like got, I don't even know what it's called, but she like got on her back and like put her leg up or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, my leg couldn't even do that. So I was really impressed by her. It is unfortunate Missouri did lose to Oklahoma though. So that sucks for them. But yeah, I mean, Helen's performance was amazing. I think they said she spent like a year traveling with her sister or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's an amazing year off. I'm not sure the reasoning behind it, but like I said, that's incredible. I think to take time off of anything that you love doing it's really hard to get back into it and stay, especially in that level of in shape. I mean, college gymnastics is, next to elite gymnastics. And I think that is the pro of the pros. I don't think there's a single football player out there that is anywhere near the same shape as these gymnasts. I would love to see a Georgia gym dog versus a Georgia football player. Maybe Carson Beck, before he leaves, can do a push-up contest with one of these girls, because I'm telling you,
I think he's long gone. I think he's already in Miami. He said, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, I mean, especially she took a year off and then she comes back and she has, she's competing a ganger pike off the end of the beam, which is, for college gymnasts, it's one of the hardest and highest level of difficulty dismounts you can do. I'm totally nerding out over. I love gymnastics. This is so fun.
Yeah.
But just shouting out Helen. I think she had an amazing routine, and I think I'm excited to see her in the future. I know beam is her thing, but I'd love to see her swinging on the uneven bars at some point. But overall, Georgia had a great week. They beat Boise State with a sold out arena. Georgia back in the day, they had, they were the number one in the country whenever I was a kid. They had Courtney Coupettes. They had all these Olympians that were retiring and coming to college gymnastics. I think that's such an amazing team, but they're definitely not on the same level anymore. They're a little further down right now. They're number 5 in the SEC, number 15 in the nation. I would love to see them bump up in the world or in the country for this one, but I'm thinking maybe they just needed a sold out arena to win this competition against Boise State. It was a tough one for them. What do you think about this Boise State Georgia competition?
Simone Biles was there with her husband. So I thought that was pretty cool. It is really awesome to see people pour in for a female dominated sport. Um, because whether we like it or not, that's not always the case. You can watch men's basketball versus women's basketball, and it's always going to be kind of a smaller arena, smaller amount of audience. And so to see us like sold out, packed stadium for them is really cool and really awesome of Georgia fans to do that for them. I thought it was cool. You know, I don't really know much about Georgia, their history, but yeah, I mean, the only things like I like to see them stick the landing. That's what I know. I know when their landings are bad and when they're good. So there are some good landings.
Yeah, I mean, what was Simone Biles' husband's name again? Anyways,
Simone
uh,
Biles, that's what his name is.
it looks like Kentucky had a fantastic week. They unfortunately upset your Bama team here this weekend. What was awesome was that Kentucky scored higher than a 49.275 on each event, which is wildly impressive. When you're looking at gymnastics scores, for those of you who don't know, 1 point, so from a 9 to a 10, there are 10 tenths. So there's 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, so on and so on until you get to a 10. So when you're looking at gymnastics, it might look like it's a close competition. It might be, 169.75 versus 172.75. But really, every little detail counts in gymnastics. It sucks because they're perfect. I mean, nobody else can flip like that. No judge can probably flip like that when they're judging them. It's crazy. But just a flex of the foot is a tenth. Falling off a beam is 5 tenths. You're looking at all these little increments of if her knees were slightly bent or if she didn't quite hit her handstand. Those are all little tenths. So when you're looking at a 2 point difference, you're actually looking at 20 different errors. So it might look close, but it's not necessarily that close. It's big errors here. So Kentucky scoring that high on each event is wildly impressive. Their girls were on it, stuck their landings, hit their handstands. Really, those are the 2 key points in college gymnastics. But it's interesting because Alabama was favored in this, number 3 in the nation here. They're fighting for top dogs. They didn't really move in ranking, but it was an upset. Being that that's your team, I don't know how closely you follow Alabama gymnastics, but I'm curious how that made you feel losing to Kentucky.
Well, when I watched it, I think Alabama won. But I did hear the announcers talking about it, and they were like, "So, to just the average eye, you're not going to see everything that the judges are seeing, and gymnastics really is a sport that's measured in perfection, and so." To me, I'm looking and I'm like, oh, well, that was a perfect routine. To the judges, they're like, her hair looks weird. Let's take a tenth off. So, I don't look at the knees. I don't look at what degree the handstand is. So to me, my Crimson Tide did better than Kentucky. And obviously we know that my opinion is more important than the judges.
Clearly.
So So, but yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. Kentucky, from what I saw, like they did really good. They had really, what is this gonna sound so stupid? What is the thing where they run and then they bounce off the thing and do a flip?
The vault.
Yeah, they did really good on that. They had a lot of good, perfect landings. And then some of our girls on the bars, like their handstands were a little off. So it sucks, but it's the beginning of the season.
I will say, like, vault for me is one of the most boring to watch, especially in college gymnastics, because everybody competes a very similar vault. I think when you're watching something like the Olympics, everybody does have a little bit of a different vault because with the Olympics, I mean, you're scored not just on perfection on a 10, but you're also scored on your difficulty, which in college gymnastics, you're not necessarily scored on a difficulty more so than perfection. So vault for college gymnastics is hard for me because they all compete. The majority of them compete the same Yurchenko layout, so it is what it is. Um, but I do think at the end of the day, gymnastics is a sport that yes is measured in perfection, but it's also one of the hardest sports to watch when you're watching and you see them do something perfect and they didn't take a half step on their landing or they didn't miss a little bit of a jump and they're still being deducted 5, 7 tenths. It's crazy and it's really unfortunate. But I also want to shout out the fact that Auburn beat Arkansas. That was kind of known. Auburn's always had a really good gymnastics program. I think the War Eagles, even for the last 20 years, have genuinely had such a good program. I think their coach has led such a good team. And I actually had friends that went to Auburn and competed, and they all seemed so happy at that school. So I think there's something to say when the team gets along, and I think college gymnastics is fun because they're not really competing for an individual all around like you would in the Olympics or anything else. But college gymnastics is so fun because they have a little bit more flavor with their routines. They have a little bit more free range. They're there to have fun. They're there to compete for their school, and they're there to compete as a team, which for a lot of these gymnasts is the first time that they're competing as a team. So I think watching the freshmen have fun competing for the first time as a War Eagle or a Georgia Gym Dog or any of those, I think it's a fun sport to watch. It's really fun to watch live. So if you have a chance to go watch in an arena, you should. Um, but yeah, obviously LSU, who's number 2 in the country, they beat the Florida Gators. That was also pretty favored, pretty standard. Once again, I mean, you're looking at these scores, and yes, they look so close, but for Florida, they were a point 1.775 off. That's 17 errors, or that could have been a really big fall on beam, or it could have been a fall on bars. A fall on bars is a whole point. It's really crazy. So really for these teams in this season, and we'll touch more on details in the following episodes, they really, really have to hit those routines. They have to hit nail on they have to hit their landing head on. They have to hit their handstands. They have to have clean, easy beam routines, floor routines. So I'm excited to see what the season holds. Currently, right now, you're looking at these top 3 teams being Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma's having a great year so far. Who would have thought? Those boomers. Yeah. I mean, you know what? Oklahoma needs someone to have a good year, unlike their football team. You know what I'm saying? But it's going to be a really interesting week next week because we've got Georgia competing against Florida. They're actually rivals. So that'll be a fun little competition that they're going to have. Then also Alabama and Oklahoma compete next week. And I wanted to get your input on this because it is Oklahoma, and you and I both share the same level of hatred for the Boomer Sooners. But how are you feeling as a Bama fan going into such a big competition against the number 1 team in the nation?
I'll say that the Oklahoma Sooners weren't even on my radar until this year, so props to them. But now they're on my hate list. So I'll definitely be cheering my Crimson Tide on. I'm excited. This is just a fun thing to get to watch on Fridays. Like, I feel like there's not really a lot of sports that go on Friday, but this is a fun one. So, and we'll also see how much I can learn in the next few weeks watching and discussing this. I might be a stupid gym girl for the rest of my life, or I might be smart. We never know.
I can't wait to teach you and everybody else on this show throughout the next 2 weeks watching these teams. I mean, gymnastics season is the best season. It because it is such a high level sport. There's not as many competitions. It's not as long of a season. But it's so fun, and it's so fun to watch these girls just because they're having fun. And I think gymnastics is one of the sports, like you mentioned earlier. This is, a matter of personal opinion, but like you said, with basketball, people normally gear towards watching men's basketball than women's, and I think this is kind of the reverse for gymnastics. I personally gear more towards watching women compete in gymnastics than men. Not that men's gymnastics is not amazing and cool; it's awesome, and I do find it interesting. And their level of difficulty is a little bit higher than women's gymnastics. But I will say it's fascinating to watch the women. And I think it's a beautiful form of art, especially when they're competing a floor or beam routine, just because they're dancing and they're having fun. And I think college gymnastics is fun because you get their a little bit of their personality. I don't know if you watched a few years ago, there was a gymnast from UCLA that went viral. And her routine was so fun because it was like to Beyonce. I mean, who doesn't want to watch somebody prance around and have fun and then do these crazy like flips in the air? They're like doing a double pike and a double layout, and you're just like, wow, I could never imagine flipping 4 freaking times in the air. So it's always a fun sport to watch for me, and so I'm really looking forward to leading you through the season, Miss Georgia.
Yes, I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, you put Beyonce in anything and I'm down. So
Thank you so much for joining us this week, Sassy Stuff. Me and Georgia are so excited to talk to you more about this gymnastics season. We will see you next week. If you're not already following us on Instagram and TikTok, go ahead and follow us now.